The Louse and the Mosquito by Vikram Seth. Vikram Seth was born in 1952 in Kolkata, India. After his public schooling, Seth earned degrees in philosophy, politics and economics at Oxford University in the UK. Later, he pursued a PhD in economics at Stanford University in the US, but did not complete it. Seth published his book of poetry, Mappings, in 1980 and his first novel, The Golden Gate, in 1986. This is the story of a louse and the mosquito. There once lived a louse in the bedroom of a king's palace. The louse had a large family with many sons and daughters. At night, when the king slept, they crept to his bed and feasted on his blood. One day, a mosquito came into the king's room through the large window. It flew around the room and sat on the king's bed. How comfortable the bed is! I'm sure the king's blood too must taste as sweet as honey, it said aloud. When the louse heard the mosquito speak, it came out and began to ask questions to the mosquito. Who are you and why are you here? The louse demanded. I am a wanderer and this is the first time I have entered a king's palace. I have drunk the blood of many, but never the blood of a king. It must be very sweet and tasty. Yes, it is, but you cannot have it, said the louse with a serious face. Why not? The mosquito asked. Well, when you bite the king, he will jump up and kill all of us, said the louse. But the mosquito would not live. It pleaded. Oh, please let me taste his blood once. I promise I will be as silent as a mouse and leave after a single bite. The louse took pity on the mosquito. All right, just this once. But remember to do it at the right time and at the right spot. The right time is after the king drinks his milk and goes to bed. The right place is his foot. If you bite him there after he falls asleep, he will not know. That night, the mosquito waited until the king came to his room and lay down on his bed. By then, the mosquito was very hungry. He could not wait any more. Just a tiny bite, he thought. The king will never know. He flew up to his bed. Just as the king was about to fall asleep, the mosquito bit him on the neck. The king howled in pain and sat astart. Men, find them now and arrest them, he shouted. His servants came rushing. The king asked them to search the room thoroughly for the insects that had bitten him. By then, the mosquito had fled. But the servants found the louse with all its children and grandchildren in the bed. They are the ones who bit me, the king shouted. Kill them all. The louse and his family tried to escape, but no avail. If only he had not let the mosquito taste the king's blood. In the king's bed crept the louse, lived in her ancestral house. They had dwelt here as of right for 3 decades, and each night she and her enormous brood drank the king's blood for their food. These lines show that once there lived a louse in the king's bedroom along with its enormous brood. Enormous brood means its brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and all. They had lived there for 3 decades. 3 decades is a term of 30 years. And each night she and her family members drank the king's blood for their food. Once the signal came from creep that the king was fast asleep. Quietly, discreetly, they nipped and sipped and drank away. Sons and grandsons, sisters, brothers, great-granddaughters, great-grandmothers, second cousins and their wives thus pursued their gentle lives. Lives of undisturbed delight, growing plump and smooth and white. So when the king fell asleep, all of them used to come out from their hiding places and then used to drink king's blood. So who are the members that came out from the Louse family? Sons, grandsons, sisters, brothers, granddaughters, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, second cousins, and everyone came out, and then they used to drink king's blood. In this way, they grew plump, fat, and smooth and white. They remained healthy by feeding on the king's blood. One day, a mosquito flew through the window. As he drew closer to the velvet bed, canopied with gold, he said, "Lovely, just the place for me. Ah, what perfume! Let me see. Rose, no, jasmine, and the quilt smooth as banks of Ganges silk." One day, a mosquito happened through the window and entered into the king's room. As he drew closer to the king's bed, which was canopied with gold, he said that the place was very lovely, very beautiful, and he was actually mesmerized by the smell of the perfume that he from the room, and the quilt was also as smooth as the banks of the silk that was found on the banks of the river Ganga. "Let me test the bed springs now." So he jumped up and somehow, in a parabolic leap, landed not too far from sleep. Now, when the mosquito entered the bedroom, he was very happy to find the bedroom so lovely, with such a nice fragrance. So he wanted to also test the bed springs. So he began to jump on the mattress. So while jumping, he reached near the Louse. Near the Louse name was Creep the Louse. So when the Louse saw the mosquito, he immediately told him to flap his wings and leave the room at once. He also said that there was the king's bed. Then the mosquito asked him who he was. Then he said that he was the guardian of the house, and the quilt was his. And he also said that there was no place for the mosquito, so asked him to leave the room. Then the mosquito pleaded with the Louse, asking him to stay one night, and he said next morning he would leave the room. So when the Louse heard the pleading of this mosquito, he felt pity for him because he was a kind-hearted fellow, and he let the mosquitoes to stay there for one night.